Before we get into the video, could everyone please subscribe to my Endless Diary Tales channel? Thank you so much. Let's get a divorce. There's only $10,000 left in our savings. I'll give it all to you. After 8 years of dating and 3 years of marriage, the man I loved the most said this to me with a blank face. Ethan Carter and I were high school classmates. He was the handsome boy from a poor family, while I was the spoiled daughter of a wealthy businessman. I started secretly liking him in high school. The night after our college entrance exams, under the starry sky, he confessed to me, "Emily, be with me." I was so surprised, my heart started racing. Blushing, I looked at him, and just like that, we naturally became a couple. By our 5th year of dating, my father finally agreed to let us get married. In the years that followed, as my dad's health declined, he handed over control of the company and its cash flow to the two of us. Everything continued smoothly until the beginning of this year when my father passed away. Ethan became increasingly busy and eventually stopped coming home at night. A month ago, the company my father left us went bankrupt. Ethan said that after everything was liquidated, we were left with just $10,000, and he was giving it all to me. "Sign the papers, Emily." I looked at Ethan's unfamiliar face and found it hard to believe that this was the same man who had once loved me so much that others envied us. He used to give me massages at night, hold me in his arms every morning, and never left for work without a kiss goodbye. But now, this face with its sharp features radiated nothing but coldness. "Are you done, Ethan?" A familiar voice came from behind. I turned and saw Olivia Parker walk in. She had been my best friend since freshman year of high school, inseparable from me ever since. She had always been single until now. Her belly was visibly pregnant. I was stunned. "Olivia." She instinctively placed a hand over her belly and, looking scared and weak, hid behind Ethan. "Emily, I'm sorry. It's Ethan's child." I told him not to rush, but he couldn't wait. I didn't mean for it to happen. He just loves me too much. He couldn't help but want me every night, and with how often it happened, it just accidentally happened. I stared at Ethan, heartbroken and hopeless. He furrowed his brow when he met my eyes full of disappointment. He didn't seem happy. In fact, he looked annoyed. He turned to Olivia and said, "Go outside first. Don't hurt the baby." Olivia looked reluctant, but she stepped out. Just before she shut the door, Ethan turned back to me with a triumphant smile. I looked at him. By now, I understood everything. My family hadn't gone bankrupt. It had been drained. "Everything transferred out by you, right, Ethan?" He remained silent. I looked at him and started laughing. Then I laughed so hard I cried. "So these 8 years of love were fake too? Ethan, you never loved me, did you?" His fists clenched, but he didn't say a word. When I fell backward, Ethan rushed forward to catch me, but I shoved him away. His eyes turned red. "Emily, don't call me that. It disgusts me. I used to think I was the happiest person alive. My mom died young, but my dad gave me all his love and raised me well. And then I had you by my side, protecting me. Turns out it was all just a setup. Ethan, these 8 years with you have been nothing but a nightmare. If I could do it all over again, I'd wish for you to never find peace. You and Olivia, two despicable people. You'll pay for what you've done." A sharp pain hit the back of my head, and I slowly lost consciousness. When I opened my eyes again, I realized I had fainted on the lawn, still clutching a phone in my hand. From the phone, someone was calling my name. The voice was unfamiliar yet somehow familiar. "Emily, where are you right now? Did you faint from low blood sugar again? Dad is coming to find you now." It was my father's voice on the other end of the call, filled with urgency. But my dad had already passed away. How could he possibly be calling me? I sat up, rubbing the aching spot on the back of my head, and realized I was wearing a school uniform skirt, my pale calves exposed. Not far away from a nearby alley came the sound of fists landing and feet kicking. "Kneel and beg me, and maybe I'll let you go, you filthy bastard. Ethan Sinclair's illegitimate son? You think you're good enough to study at our school without thinking." I ran toward the noise. "What are you doing?" Ethan Sinclair was thinly dressed, his eyes red, his body trembling. When he looked up at me, there was a storm of emotions in his gaze. Seeing his face, I suddenly remembered someone long buried in my memory. Ethan Sinclair. He was the only son of my father's close friend, Mr. Sinclair, a child born out of wedlock and left to fend for himself. I'd heard that Mr. Sinclair had tricked his mother into marriage back in the day. Later, she died in a car crash, and Ethan was reluctantly taken in by the Sinclair family. But Mr. Sinclair's wife was cruel and ruthless. In the end, she had him tortured until he died during his sophomore year of college. Shortly after his death, I received an anonymous letter. Inside the envelope was a bank card and a slip of paper. On the paper was a string of numbers, 130924. When I looked it up, I found the card belonged to Ethan Sinclair, and it contained all the savings from his short, tragic life. So where was I now? Had I gone back in time? While I was lost in thought, the group of boys grabbed me. "Hey, look at this chick. Came to play hero." One of them reached out to touch me, and something in Ethan snapped. "Get your hands off her," he roared, furious. His sudden rage only earned him another beating. The last time this happened, I had watched it from a distance and hadn't stepped in. The final image I saw before running for help was him curled up on the ground, being punched over and over again, every blow landing hard. But this time, he was like a wolf protecting its mate. His eyes burned with a desperate will to survive. The scene turned from a one-sided beating into a real fight. He stood in front of me, shielding me. I panicked and yelled as loudly as I could. "I'm Emily Carter. Everyone at Westfield High knows who I am. My dad treats me like a princess. Go ask around if you don't believe me. Today, I'm protecting him. If you dare lay a hand on me, just wait and see what my dad does to you." Sure enough, the bullies froze, suddenly uncertain. They looked more closely at me and then shouted in disbelief, "Holy ___. It really is Emily Carter. Ethan Sinclair, guess you got lucky today. Someone's here to protect you." They ran off, leaving behind a mess. Ethan pushed himself up from the ground, his body covered in bruises. "You shouldn't have come to save me," he said. I hadn't planned to cry, but realizing I had truly returned to the past and was being given a second chance, I couldn't stop my eyes from welling up. When he saw my tears, Ethan stiffened. "No wonder they call you Emily. Even someone spoiled like you would still help me." I snapped back. "Spoiled or not, I saved you." 10 minutes later, my dad came huffing down the alley, his chubby body bouncing with every step. Uncle Joe, our driver, was behind him, panting like crazy. "Dad," I called. My father looked at me, then at Ethan, whose face was still marked with bruises and dirt. "You too," he began. I jumped in before Ethan could say a word. "Someone tried to bully me, and he saved me." Ethan looked shocked. Back then, I hadn't treated him particularly well. I helped him once, but after that, I barely spoke to him for 2 years. He was quiet, withdrawn, not good at socializing, and I was afraid Luke would misunderstand. But now, remembering the letter I received after he died, I just wanted to save him. I had so many questions, like how exactly he died in his previous life and what that string of numbers really meant. I didn't look away from Ethan. Instead, I lifted my head and met his gaze directly. He clenched his fists tightly, his ears turned red. His reaction reminded me of something from the past. One time, I stumbled upon him fighting with some guys who had stolen his things. Pushed into a tight corner, he erupted in rage, his roar so fierce it startled everyone. During the scuffle, one of the guys dropped a pen, and only then did I see it was the pen I had casually given him the first time we met. The pen landed right by my foot. He rushed out to pick it up, then slowly looked up at me. In that moment, his fierceness and his utter vulnerability were laid bare in front of me. After that, the next time I heard anything about him, it was news of his death. In the car, my dad asked, "Should I have Uncle Joe take you home first?" "No." I cut him off quickly. "He's coming home with us." Both of them froze. My dad knew Ethan had had a hard life. He had once considered bringing his old friend's son into our home to take care of him, but I had been the one to object. I'd even protested in front of Ethan himself, saying he was trying to cling to our family. My sudden change in attitude left both of them stunned, especially Ethan. When we arrived home, Ethan didn't say a word. He silently wiped the blood from his face with his hand. I ran to grab a towel. "Here, use this." After my dad left, Ethan stared at me for a long moment before finally asking, "Why are you helping me like this now? Aren't you afraid I'll latch on to you? And what if you do?" I replied, "Could it be any more shameless than what others have done? Besides, we've known each other since middle school. Someone who left me his entire life savings after he died. How bad could he really be?" I arranged for Ethan to stay in the room next to mine. Before bed, I purposely walked past his door and stopped, standing outside. I asked, "Ethan, 3924, what do you think that number means?" Suddenly the door opened. "Emily, why are you helping me?" His voice was low and heavy. In his eyes, I saw the secrets he had hidden in his youth, the restraint he couldn't voice, an affection too deep to speak of. He had admired me like one would admire a star, full of passion but with a sense of inferiority. My chest tightened. I blamed myself for misjudging people all those years, and for not reaching out to him when he needed me most. "Emily," he called my name again, pulling me back from my thoughts. I looked into his eyes. They were burning like those of a wild wolf. I felt a little awkward and muttered, "Well, thank you for saving me earlier. Since things aren't going well for you at the Sinclairs, why not stay here? Besides, there are people who will try to cling to me in the coming days. If I keep you around, maybe you can help scare them off." I couldn't exactly tell him. "In a couple of years, you're going to die, and I've been reborn just to save you." So instead I joked, "Consider this my way of repaying you." Today, Ethan was dazed by my smile. He was tall, standing under the hallway light, casting a long shadow on the floor. His breath fell lightly on my face. "Okay," he finally said. The next morning, my dad insisted on driving me to school. Uncle Joe was at the wheel, and my dad kept glancing back at me and Ethan from the front seat, his expression unreadable. I knew what he was thinking. My sudden change, welcoming Ethan into our home, probably made him wonder if I'd lost my mind. I leaned in and whispered, "Dad, he can protect me." "Oh, okay," my dad replied, recalling what had happened the night before. He looked at Ethan with concern. When Ethan got out of the car, he turned back to my dad and said quietly, "Don't worry, sir." But as if that wasn't enough, he hesitated and added, "If anything happens, I'll stand in front of her." My dad finally let out a long sigh. "All right then." As we walked into the school building, people turned to look at us. With Ethan walking beside me, it was impossible not to draw attention. Suddenly, someone rushed up behind me. "Emily." Olivia Parker jogged over and clung to my arm. "Why are you coming to school with this guy?" There was a hint of hostility in her voice. I glanced at her and, without a word, quietly pulled my arm away. Olivia's expression instantly changed. She went from defensive to pitiful in a heartbeat. But all I could see was her 8 years from now, hiding behind Luke, boasting that he couldn't resist touching her every night, and that he was so eager for her to get pregnant. I growled at her under my breath, "Don't touch me, Emily." Emily looked utterly wronged. My intense reaction didn't escape Ethan's notice. He glanced down at me sideways, then without a word he shifted his position and walked to my right, quietly placing himself between Olivia and me. With her blocked off, I was finally able to breathe. That out-of-control surge of emotion slowly settled inside me. I reminded myself silently, "Don't rush." I quickly changed my tone and spoke more softly, even sounding more grieved than Olivia. "I'm sorry, Olivia. I didn't mean to snap at you. I just didn't sleep well last night, and what you said earlier was really out of line." Olivia was momentarily choked up, unsure how to respond. She immediately switched into her helpless, delicate act, trying to draw attention to herself, probably hoping everyone would focus on my spoiled temper. But I wasn't about to let her have her way. The only way to deal with a manipulative girl is to outplay her at her own game. I gave her a sorrowful look and said, "Ethan's our classmate. He's also the son of my dad's close friend. As my desk mate. How can you be so aloof? The way you spoke about him just now, like he wasn't even worthy of being here, Olivia. You really put me in a difficult position." Her face cracked. She couldn't even keep up her sweet, weak smile. Her nose twitched like she might cry as she looked at me in frustration. Seeing that I had no intention of saving her from the situation, she could only mumble a quick sorry and walk off in a hurry. Once Olivia was gone, I looked up and found Ethan staring at me, his eyes full of curiosity. "Why did you say all that just now?" he asked. "Was it because you hate her or because you wanted to protect me?" His voice was low and magnetic. My heart skipped a beat. I thought of how in just a few short years he would be gone forever. I hesitated, then took a deep breath and said, "I wanted to protect you." Ethan looked a bit startled and turned his gaze away. "Liar." "I'm not lying," I said quietly. That instinctive way he just shielded me from Olivia. There's no way that was fake. Olivia had tried to push me, and he had stepped in. Now it was my turn. If people held unfair bias against him, then I would protect him too. Besides, unless the waters get stirred up, Olivia would never reveal her true colors. Sure enough, after the first period, just as I expected, Olivia snuck out of class. I followed her quietly and caught her meeting with Luke in a remote lab room. The moment Luke saw her, he asked, "Olivia?" It was my first time seeing them alone together in all my past memories. Olivia had always been the shy, soft-spoken girl, so timid she barely dared to speak up. She only talked to Luke if I was present. I even had to push her to add Luke on WeChat back then. But she refused, saying, "Emily, that's not right. He's your boyfriend." I told her, "That's exactly why you should add him. You're my best friend." Back then, she had reluctantly agreed and blushed as she saved Luke's contact as Emily's boyfriend, right in front of me. But now, with no one else around, she boldly threw herself into Luke's arms, even rubbing her chest against him ever so subtly. She whispered sweetly, practically purring as she acted cute. Luke, now 18, had grown into his height of 6 feet 2 inches and was ridiculously handsome. He carried that fresh, sunny energy, and when the wind swept through his hair, it shaded his eyes just slightly. I thought Luke would hug Olivia back, but instead he stiffened. A second later, he stepped away and pushed her aside. Olivia was clearly shocked. Luke's face had gone pale. He took 2 steps back and held his forehead. "Wait, give me a moment," he said. His voice carried through the wind and echoed into the hallway like a warning. There was something strangely familiar about it. Luke in high school had a bright, fresh voice, cheerful but lacking in steadiness. But the Luke who had started a family and taken over my father's company had developed a more commanding presence. His tone sharp, decisive, and full of authority. I had been by his side for 8 years, through his entire youth. I had watched him grow into Mr. Carter. I knew every nuance of his changes. That's why I froze where I stood. This was even more shocking than seeing Olivia throwing herself into his arms while we were still in high school. If I could come back, then what about him? Before I could make sense of it, Luke's next actions confirmed my suspicions. He looked at the still young, naive Olivia and asked, "What is this? Why are you dressed like that?" His eyes landed on her flat stomach. Olivia blushed under his gaze and replied softly, "Luke, it's just between classes." "What's wrong? Emily bought this outfit for me. It cost $3,000. Don't you think it's cute?" The moment she mentioned my name, Luke's frown deepened. He clutched his head and stood there for a long time before finally recovering. "I see," he muttered, then actually chuckled. "So that's what this is. I understand now." He turned to leave. Olivia grabbed his arm. "Luke, what's wrong? Are you sick?" But Luke didn't even look at her. Instead, he urgently asked, "Where's Emily?" "Emily." Olivia repeated the name, clearly upset. "Why do you keep calling her that?" "Luke, listen to me. We need to move faster with our plan. Emily completely lost it today and snapped at me for no reason. She embarrassed me in front of everyone, and now she's getting close to that weirdo Ethan. If the two of them end up together, there's nothing left for you. We have to go with what we discussed. You chase her, get close to her, and try to get her family's money. That way we can pay off your debts and mine." Luke seemed lost in thought. Olivia kept pushing. "We still need money for school, Luke. She's an only child. If you can win her over, her family's entire fortune will be ours. That's way better than working some job in the future. I already talked to her about you. She's interested. You need to act fast and deepen your connection." On with her, she's only 18 right now, still so naive. "This is the best chance we get," Luke murmured. "Yeah, she really is still so naive right now." His eyes turned red. I couldn't listen any longer. I had heard enough to understand what was going on. Hearing it all over again struck me in a different way. My youthful innocence was just someone else's golden opportunity for manipulation. Thinking back on those 8 years with Luke, it really had been a nightmare. Fuming, I turned to leave, only to run straight into Ethan around the corner. Caught off guard, I quickly greeted him. What a coincidence. Ethan's lips were thin and pressed tightly together. Not really, he said coldly. He didn't even look at me. Instead, he glanced toward the direction I'd just come from, toward the lab where Luke and Olivia still stood. His gaze zeroed in on Luke, clearly picking up on the storm of emotions within me. He furrowed his brow. Wait for me after class. For some reason, those few words gave me a sense of security. After school, Uncle Joe came to pick me up. Since I'd been attacked the day before, he had arrived early and waited by the gate. Now, seeing me walk outside side by side with Ethan, he must have imagined some scene from a romantic drama. His old face turned bright red from holding back a grin. I jumped in quickly and said, Uncle Joe, don't we look great together? The school beauty and the school heartthrob. Total eye candy, right? Uncle Joe nearly choked on his own breath from how shameless I sounded. Just as I was about to get in the car, someone behind me called out, Emily. I turned around and saw Luke running toward me with a backpack on his back and worn-out white sneakers on his feet. Once upon a time, he used to look at me just like that, eyes full of admiration and longing. It was a look I used to love the most, but now seeing that same look full of regret and longing, all I felt was disgust. I didn't stop walking. I stepped straight into my family's Mercedes. So much for that so-called humble, hard-working boy. He could go to hell. Deliberately, and right in front of Luke, I called out to Ethan, let's go home together. Luke stood there as I ignored him like air, but when I turned to Ethan and smiled, Luke's jaw clenched tighter and tighter. Emily. I tilted my head and looked at him, pretending not to understand. We had dated for 5 years and been married for 3. After all that betrayal, here we were meeting again. Young bodies now carried the souls of our older, worn selves. He must have thought I was still that naive 18-year-old Emily. Maybe he regretted everything and believed he had another shot at doing it all over again. But why would I ever give him that chance? Not only was I not going to give it to him, I was going to make him watch with open eyes how he lost everything. There's no such thing as real or fake Emily. He still thought he was the future CEO, the successful Mr. Carter. I looked at him coldly. Can I help you with something? My voice was detached, but my face remained politely blank. Do you need something? I repeated more clearly this time. Luke's throat moved as he swallowed hard, his eyes swirling with emotion. The longer our eyes locked, the colder I felt, my limbs going numb. Fury surged toward the top of my head, ready to explode. I could feel the bitterness and hatred threatening to burst through my chest. But right as I reached that breaking point, a hand landed on my shoulder, grounding me. I snapped out of it. Ethan looked me in the eye and said calmly, Didn't you say we're going home together? I nodded and smiled sweetly at him. That's right, you still have to come to my room tonight and help tutor me, remember? Tutoring? He nearly lost his composure, glancing away awkwardly. I nodded. To my surprise, he didn't call me out on it. Instead, he reached out and ruffled my hair, and I let him. It was clear now who was close and who wasn't. Luke remained frozen in place as I said goodbye to him, like we were nothing more than casual classmates. Uncle Joe sensed my impatience and immediately started the car. Luke's figure grew smaller and smaller in the rearview mirror, until he became a lonely little dot, pitiful and powerless. Ethan stayed quiet the whole way. That night, I remained in my room until I noticed that Ethan had been sitting in the upstairs living room for a long time. It felt like he was waiting for me. When he heard the door open, he stood up. As I walked over to him, I realized just how tall he was. Though he was a bit thin, he was even taller than Luke. His features were sharp and defined, but his bangs were too long, covering his eyes as if he was hiding how naturally attractive he really was. Suddenly, I remembered something Dad had once told me. Ethan looked just like his late mother. It was her beauty that had led to her being tricked into marriage by Ethan's father. I never agreed with what Mr. Sinclair had done, but that was between the previous generation. I had no right to judge. I called out, Ethan, did you want to talk to me? Ethan's eyes carried a look that almost accused me of being a liar. Tutoring, he asked. I froze for a second, busted. I laughed awkwardly. That was just an excuse to shut Luke up. The truth was, I'd never been a serious student. If I had to actually sit through a tutoring session, it'd be the death of me. In those years after marriage, whether it was Luke spoiling me out of love or out of habit, I'd gotten pretty soft. I couldn't even recite the periodic table, though I was decent at drawing. Trying to play it off, I smiled and said, I'm just tired today, no tutoring tonight. Let's do it tomorrow. Ethan didn't push, he stood up and headed back to his room. But as he passed me, he paused for just a second. Ethan was always like that. His emotions buried so deep you wouldn't notice, unless you really looked. He kept people at arm's length, even when he felt something as deep as the ocean. Still waters on the surface, but roaring waves below, all trapped in his heart. That night I had a nightmare. In it, Luke had his hands wrapped around my neck, CK strangling me while Olivia lounged in my bed, posing seductively right in front of me. He looked at me and sneered. Emily, everything that was yours is mine now. I laughed bitterly in my dream and told him I would get my revenge. Then I broke free from his grip and, without a second thought, turned and jumped out of the window. The sudden drop felt like being ripped apart, a sharp gut-wrenching pull. The pain in my body felt so real, like I was dying all over again. I couldn't stop the nausea. I ran into the bathroom and vomited until I was dizzy and weak. When I finally looked up at myself in the mirror, I saw someone completely wrecked in this second life. After knowing the truth, I thought I would be consumed by revenge, but after reliving the nightmare, I realized something even scarier. Being forever trapped in those emotions, surrounded by those awful people. That would be the dumbest thing I could do. What I really wanted was to never have anything to do with those two ever again. At 3 a.m., I grabbed my pillow and went to knock on Ethan's door. Ethan, are you asleep? A few minutes later, he opened the door and completely froze when he saw me. He instinctively gripped the door frame. Without waiting, I slipped past him and ran straight for his bed. Emily, he muttered. The room was so quiet I could hear the pounding of his heartbeat. His voice was low and controlled. What are you doing? I'm scared, I said. Ethan stood there in the dark, completely lost on what to do. The scene really couldn't have looked more suspicious. 2 days ago, I'd saved him from being beaten. Now here I was crawling into his bed. Anyone seeing this would get the wrong idea. But right now, the only people in this world who gave me a sense of security were my dad and Ethan. Ethan, you said you'd stand in front of me if anything happened, remember? His breathing grew heavier, he turned away. I couldn't tell him what I was really afraid of, so I just said I had a nightmare, a really bad one. It was terrifying, Ethan. I'm not strong, I'm easily scared. But don't worry, I'm not here to do anything bad. I just want to borrow your bed. I promise I won't touch you. While he was distracted, I dove under the covers. His pillow and blanket were clean. Uncle Joe had brought them over 2 days ago, and they carried his scent, the kind of scent that made me feel safe. In the middle of the night, Ethan stood there watching me lie in his bed, clearly at a loss. He didn't know whether to come in or leave. He looked like one of those helpless serious boys who just got run over by a pushy, unpredictable girl. Emily, he sighed. It seemed like he wanted to say something but held it back. In the end he gave up and said, his voice raspy, "All right, you sleep here. We have school tomorrow. I'll go sleep outside." "Don't go." I reached out and grabbed his arm. Ethan looked completely defeated by me, he couldn't win. His tone, while still awkward, now carried a subtle trace of indulgence and warmth. "Then I'll sit at the end of the bed and keep you company. Ethan, once I fall asleep, don't leave, okay? I'm scared." "All right." His voice was low and gruff, clearly trying to brush me off. But if I hadn't noticed how stiff his whole body had gotten, I might have actually believed him. Here I was, stealing his bed and making him sit and watch me sleep. How shameless was I? I whispered. "Why don't you just lie down too?" Ethan's breathing instantly grew heavy. "Emily, do you even know what you're saying?" "Of course I do. We're both 18. We're not kids anymore. And even if I've already lived most of a lifetime, now that I've got another chance, I'm not going to let silly little things stop me. This is just getting too boring." Ethan's bed was so warm. After being on edge the entire night, I finally lost my patience and reached out to pull him toward me. He wasn't prepared for how hard I yanked him, and he tumbled straight onto the bed beside me. The moonlight, silver gray and cold, spilled through the window, casting a perfect glow across the bridge of Ethan's nose. His eyes were bright and deep, like a pool of still water. When I looked into them, my heartbeat slowed for a beat. Before I knew it, I had fallen asleep in a haze. I could feel Ethan quietly getting up, then sitting on the edge of the bed, stubbornly keeping watch over me for the rest of the night. In this life, though I had grown up in a single-parent household, my father had always treated me like a treasure. And now, even Ethan, someone I barely interacted with in my previous life, was guarding me with such gentle care. The way he stayed by my side made it feel like he was protecting something as precious as the gem in the palm of his hand. The next morning, we went downstairs for breakfast. I walked ahead. Ethan followed behind. When my dad saw the two of us getting along so well, he grinned from ear to ear. But then he noticed the dark circles under Ethan's eyes and gave him a strange look. "Sweetheart," he said meaningfully. "Did you bully Ethan again?" I didn't wait for him to tease me further, and cut straight to the point. "Dad, I remember asking you for a sum of money not long ago." "That's right," he said. "You wanted me to sponsor 2 students under the company's name." In my past life, I had secretly asked my dad to use the name of a satellite branch of the company to financially support Olivia and Luke to protect their pride. I even told him to keep it subtle so no one would suspect a thing. Dad ended up setting up a scholarship with the money. The whole thing was practically rigged so that Olivia and Luke would win it. Later, when Olivia failed her college entrance exams, she used that award and a connection with one of my uncles to get a special recommendation to enter a university. Honestly, the reason Olivia had a prestigious academic background at all was thanks to that charity I'd done behind the scenes. I asked my dad, "Where's the process at now?" He smiled cheerfully. "We've already made contact with the 2 students. The award's been finalized, just waiting to transfer the funds." "Do you have a different plan now?" "Emily, I thought of how in my last life my dad died without even knowing what had happened." I smiled coldly. "Dad, hold off for now." He looked a little surprised. "Why?" "I thought about it seriously last night," I said. "I think it's better to donate the money elsewhere. The work these 2 students submitted doesn't deserve such a big award. It's $120,000. There must be others who need that money more, like people who are sick. Let's use it for medical treatment and to help save lives." Dad fell silent, thoughtful. My mom had passed away due to illness. Those words clearly touched a soft spot in his heart. He nodded slowly. "These 2 students still have both parents. They don't really matter to your usual charity criteria either. But sweetheart, if you wanted to help them, I'd still do it for you." My heart ached a little. My father's love for me had always been unconditional, but there were always people who tried to take advantage of that unconditional love. When I got to school, Olivia had already received the notice that her award had been revoked. The committee had added another round of final evaluation, and she was eliminated. She gave me this look of wounded innocence. Emily. She had always known that this award was just an excuse my family made to give her money. She only pretended not to know. But now she couldn't pretend anymore. Her act had crumbled. She finally came up to talk to me. I didn't win. I feigned ignorance. Didn't win. What? The National High School Research Competition, she said. To be honest, my dad had picked a pretty flashy name for the program. I held back the disgust and patted her on the shoulder. It's okay, Olivia. We'll try again next time. Don't give up. She bit her lip. You know my dad's a gambler. My mom works odd jobs just to pay off his debts. He racked up more debt recently. I told them I'd won the award ahead of time. They promised the loan sharks they'd pay by the end of this month. Her face went pale. I didn't need to ask. She had clearly just realized how bad things were going to get. Emily, she said, her voice trembling. If I can't pay it back, my whole family is finished. What am I supposed to do? I looked at her with concern and said sadly, I really want to help you, Olivia, but I spent too much last month, and my dad just got mad and froze all my cards yesterday. Oh right, I added innocently. Do you still have money? Can you lend me a bit? She looked at me like I'd lost my mind. I put on a guilty expression. I really don't have any cash left. You know how bad I am with spending. Didn't I give you $3,000 just last week? You're more frugal than I am. You probably haven't even used it all. Could you give it back? Emily, I'm sorry, she stammered. I gave it to my parents. I don't have any money left to pay you back. No worries, I said with a smile. Just remember to repay me when you have the chance. We're best friends after all. After that, Olivia didn't dare bring up money with me again, afraid I'd actually ask her to return what she owed. Once she realized she couldn't squeeze another cent out of me, she turned to Luke for help, and sure enough, it wasn't long before I saw her sneaking off again. She was getting desperate and started clinging to Luke more frequently, forgetting all about keeping a low profile. That day after class, she rushed off, claiming she had to go. In reality, she was heading to Luke's classroom to corner him. Luke had been especially quiet all week, like he was trying to figure out why things weren't unfolding the way he expected. In this life, that change had a ripple effect. He began to distance himself from Olivia. But Olivia thought he was just hesitating, so she barged into his classroom, red-eyed and emotional. The other students had already left, so it was just the two of them. Luke, she pleaded. I know you don't like Emily. You think she's spoiled, loud, never serious about anything. But we can't wait any longer. If my dad can't pay this debt, they're going to drag me away to cover it. We've grown up together. You were my first, remember? I even got close to Emily for you. Do you know what people say about me? They say I'm her lapdog. Do you think I don't have any pride? Everything I've sacrificed, who is it all for? Even if you don't like her, can't you be with her for my sake? Olivia was really putting on a show, but then she noticed something. Luke's hand, the one holding the pen, had frozen. I like her, he said. What? Olivia blinked. I said, Luke repeated. I like her. Olivia looked like she'd been struck by lightning. What did you just say, Luke? What are you talking about? His voice was hoarse, and he gave a bitter smile. Exactly what you heard, Olivia. Do you know why I haven't contacted you all week? I've been trying to figure out what this feeling really means. I had originally followed them just to see how their pathetic little scheme was progressing. But hearing Luke say that sent a wave of cold despair through me. It was a suffocating kind of sadness. What was the point of this? I had died. Everything had reset, and now he was saying he liked me. If he really liked me, why hadn't he cherished me when he had me? If he liked me, why had he gotten Olivia pregnant, funneled my family's money to her, and divorced me? This was his version of liking someone. He wasn't an innocent 18-year-old anymore. He was Luke, the same Luke who had spent 8 years with me, married me in a grand wedding, and shared everything with me. And now he stood in front of a younger, more innocent Olivia and claimed to have feelings for me. His love came too late, and it was laughable. Even Olivia was losing her mind over it. She cried, Luke, you're my boyfriend. How could you say you like Emily? She's my friend. Luke's gaze turned cold. Then why did you ask me to pursue your friend? That's not the same. Emily has everything, but I only have you. Olivia's voice was growing weaker. All I wanted was for you to get close to her and bring something back for us. Sensing Luke's shift in mood, she quickly softened her tone and tried to coax, him looking pitiful as ever. The whole scene was spiraling into something grotesque. Olivia desperately clinging to Luke, her pure innocent face twisted into manipulation. Luke's gaze was shifting, nervous, hesitant, and full of guilt. No matter what, he was still a man, and his feelings for Olivia ran deep. I watched as his expression slowly changed, and I couldn't help but laugh out loud. It was just too ridiculous. I turned to leave but accidentally stepped on some garbage near the corner. There was a loud noise. Someone had thrown away an empty yogurt bottle, and it rolled noisily across the floor. At that exact moment, before Luke could respond, a hand reached out and pulled me back. As Luke and Olivia scrambled to fix their clothes and came running out, Ethan grabbed my hand and dragged me toward the rooftop. We climbed the stairs step by step, and his hand stayed tightly locked around mine. The warmth from his palm radiated into mine, and my heart rose and fell with every breath. The wind brushing past my ears reminded me of what was happening. Were Luke and Olivia chasing us? We heard the metal door to the rooftop being pushed open behind us. Ethan's dark eyes looked at me, filled with unspoken emotion. I didn't know how much he had heard, or if he'd also heard all the schemes Olivia had been whispering. As my brain raced to assess the situation, Ethan suddenly pulled me into his arms. He shifted my position so that I was completely shielded behind him. Luke had reached the rooftop, panting, with Olivia close behind. He frowned and looked straight at Ethan. "Were you the one eavesdropping on us just now?" Luke asked. Ethan stood motionless. Luke, now suspicious, took a step forward, clearly intending to handle the matter. If word got out that he and Olivia had been caught fooling around in the classroom, it wouldn't look good for either of them. It was obvious he was trying to protect Olivia. When he saw clearly that it was Ethan, he hesitated, but then his eyes locked onto me. With a harsh voice, Luke said, "Emily." I gave Ethan a tug. He turned to look at Luke with a sharp, piercing glare and then, without warning, wrapped his arms around me. Luke's eyes instantly turned red. "Let her go. What are you doing to her? Can't you see Olivia's right there?" Ethan replied flatly. Luke looked stunned. "Emily, you and Ethan." I covered my face dramatically, acting embarrassed. "We've been up here for half an hour, busy you two." I glanced at them and asked, "You know each other?" Olivia's face turned pale. My lovely best friend was clearly guilty, and didn't dare press further. She looked nervously at Luke. Luke clenched his fists tightly and turned to me. "Emily, you know the school doesn't allow dating." I couldn't help it. I burst out laughing. "Wow, this one's dramatic. We're not dating. I was asking him for money." That line matched exactly what I told Olivia earlier that morning. She immediately relaxed with relief, silently exhaling. After they left, Ethan still hadn't let go of my hand. I gently pulled it back. He looked at me. "Emily? Yeah, does that count as me protecting you again?" Over the next week, two major things happened. First, Olivia and Luke lost their scholarship money. With no funds, both families were unable to pay off their debts. Their homes were trashed by creditors. Olivia was nearly assaulted but managed to fight back and protect herself. Luke took a beating trying to shield his mother. They had grown up together, childhood friends. Both of their fathers were gamblers. They shared the same broken homes, the same hardships. No wonder Olivia never worried. Even after all those years of watching Luke date me, she never feared he'd truly leave her. She had always believed she was the one he loved, that I was merely a stepping stone for his ambitions. At the same time, something else happened. Ethan got bullied again because he and I had been getting closer lately. Luke secretly stirred the pot. A group of school thugs cornered Ethan in an alley and taunted him again. "Ethan Sinclair, you toad. Dreaming of eating swan meat? You think clinging to Emily will get you anywhere? What can you possibly give her lately?" Because Uncle Joe drove both me and Ethan to and from school every day, they had grown closer. Ethan didn't talk much, but he was always polite. He never looked down on Uncle Joe just because he was a driver, so Uncle Joe had come to see him in a different light. The day Ethan got into trouble, I happened to be at home sick with a bad cold. I had taken the day off, which meant Ethan was on his own. This time, it was Uncle Joe who stepped in to help him. And it was Uncle Joe who quietly told me what had happened afterward. Before I even had the chance to check on Ethan, he knocked on my bedroom door. He had a bruise under his eye, but the first thing he did was place his hand on my forehead to make sure my fever had gone down. Then he said, "Emily, I need to borrow some money." "What for?" "To start a business," he replied. Ethan wanted to start a business. This life really was unfolding differently. I gave him all the pocket money I'd saved up over the past few years. In my previous life, that money had gone to Luke to help him pay for college. After we got married, he never paid me back. Once we became a family, that debt just vanished. This time, I invested it all in Ethan. As for Luke, he could figure things out on his own. Ethan still had a little over a year left to live, at least according to the timeline from my last life. I hoped that with my help, this life could end differently for him. College entrance exams were right around the corner. Olivia and Luke were both focused on preparing, pouring everything they had into studying. Only Ethan remained consistently excellent. Despite his academic standing, he was already juggling his new business. I had no idea what kind of venture it was until the evening of May 19th, just before the exams, when Ethan asked me to go out for a late-night snack. I picked a light yellow sundress and tied my hair up in a soft princess braid. When we arrived at the night market, 6 good-looking boys stood up and grinned at me in unison. "Sister-in-law," they shouted. Ethan smiled, walked up, and patted the leader on the shoulder to shut him up, but that only made them more hyped. "Look at that, Ethan's being protective," one joked. "Sorry, sister-in-law, Ethan won't let us joke around." That's when I finally learned what Ethan had been up to. He had used the money to open an esports gaming company. These 6 boys were his very first professional players. Halfway through the meal, I went to the restroom. On the way, I passed the back entrance of a supermarket, and to my surprise, I saw Luke in a city glowing with 1,000 lights. When he should have been at home cramming for the college entrance exam, Luke was working, hauling boxes for a living. He was wearing a worn-out tank top, his entire body drenched in sweat as he carried cases of beer onto his shoulder. The strain made the muscles in his arms stand out, veins visible along his neck. When he saw me, he froze. I didn't move, neither did he. We just stared at each other. Then one of his coworkers yelled out, "Hey, Luke!" He finally broke eye contact, clenched his jaw, and silently went back to work. Since the last time we spoke, he hadn't approached me again. He also hadn't tried to win me over or steal money from my family like Olivia had planned. Turns out he had chosen the more honorable path, earning money through hard work and student jobs. After he finished moving that batch of beer, he went back out to carry more. At one point, he scraped his arm badly on something sharp, leaving a long cut. When his shift ended, the boss handed him $80. Just then, Ethan appeared behind me. "Emily." I didn't hear the first time, so he said it again louder. "Emily." I turned around. He must have come looking for me, because I'd been gone too long. Over the past few months, he had helped me so much, tutoring me occasionally and helping my dad with work around the house to repay us for room and board. I had told him ages ago that he could call me by my nickname. But tonight was the first time he ever actually called me that. For a moment, I forgot how to respond. Ethan followed my gaze, his eyes landing on Luke, who was lowering his head to fasten a box strap. "Does it hurt to see him like this?" Ethan asked. I shook my head. This is how it should be. He came from a tough background. Standing on his own 2 feet is the right path. Everyone should be responsible for their own life. The ones who abandon their morals are the real disgrace. In this new life, Luke was finally starting to resemble a man. When we returned to the night market, one of the guys from Ethan's esports team with curly hair ordered a round of beer. The mood was lively, so I drank a little too. Ethan and I were both tipsy by the time we got home, but instead of heading straight into our rooms, we stood side by side on the balcony chatting. We looked up at the stars together. I asked Ethan, "Do you like the stars or the moon more?" He said, "The moon." "Why?" He hesitated, stared at me for a long time. So long I thought he wasn't going to answer. Then finally, in a low voice, he said, "Because there's a light I want to protect." My heart fluttered uncontrollably. I used to be intimidated by how cold and silent he was. I used to avoid his quiet nature. But in this new life, as I got closer, I realized it was all just armor. His aloofness was a defense. No one chooses to walk alone in the dark. He only became like that because in the past, no one had ever loved him. But now, in this life, Ethan had a chance to start over. After my dad brought him home, Mr. Sinclair was relieved Ethan became a part of our family. Over the past few months of living together day and night, he'd learned how to open up. He was kind to me and to my dad too. His care showed in the little things, quiet but precious. More importantly, I could see how hard he was working so he could stand beside me. He woke up early, stayed up late, fought to build his business from the ground up. Even with barely enough time to sleep, he stayed up at night to help me organize my notes, summarize my mistakes, and write down full problem solutions step by step. Whenever I needed him, he showed up. He was always there, always protecting me. I used to think love had to be passionate, like when Luke had once confessed under the stars, so full of charm and romance. But after Ethan, I realized real love was steady and detailed. It was showing up. It was unreasonable favoritism. It was being looked down on by everyone, even himself, believing he wasn't worthy but still fighting to become better, cleaner, just for me, just for the chance to be with me. That night, we stood shoulder to shoulder watching the moon. He didn't speak of what was on his mind, neither did I. But in that silence, I saw my own heart clearly. I understood what I wanted in this life. I wouldn't give up just because of past pain. I had to let go of Luke and Olivia, and I had to live for myself. But before I even had the chance to live fully, on May 20th, Luke cornered me. He handed me a box with a designer label on it. "It's a gift for May 20th. "I can't accept this," I said. "We're barely even classmates." He shoved it toward me anyway, eyes filled with stubbornness. I couldn't tell if it was the date getting to him, or if he was just trying again to win me back his own way. But one thing was certain. He was persistent. May 20th used to be our wedding anniversary. That day we had gone to register our marriage, but halfway through he answered a call, forced himself to finish the process, then left right after. Too bad I'd been such a fool back then. His eyes were full of affection, so much that it overwhelmed him. And yet he still couldn't see what was truly in front of him. "Take it," Luke said. "I bought it with money I earned myself." I stared at him, not knowing what to say. Back then, he almost never used his own money to buy me anything. Nearly everything he had came from my father's hard work over decades. His eyes shimmered with hope, but after I turned him down, again and again, his patience finally snapped. He frowned. "Emily, stop being so stubborn." "Me? Stubborn?" I looked at him, calm and smiling. "You're Luke, right? I've heard all about your situation from Olivia. Your mother's currently in the hospital undergoing dialysis. Your family's struggling, and yet here you are spending money to buy me this." I stepped back. "I'm not taking it." Luke stood there, dazed and helpless. After that, I cut ties with Luke and distanced myself from Olivia too. Once she realized she couldn't get any more money out of me, Olivia latched on to a different group. I overheard her more than once chatting with other girls, subtly bringing me up in ways that painted me in a negative light, guiding their misunderstandings without ever saying anything outright. But one girl in our class, known for being blunt, couldn't take it anymore. She snapped at Olivia. "Seriously, Emily used to be so good to you. And you talk behind her back like this? What are you, some kind of manipulative green tea girl? Gross." Olivia's face turned red, then pale. Her mask had finally slipped, and she lost what little popularity she had left. She tried to turn the class against me, but it backfired. People ended up isolating her instead. 1 week before the college entrance exam, she was completely ignored by everyone in class. Bitter and anxious, she couldn't hold it together, and she paid the price. She failed spectacularly. When the scores came out, Olivia didn't even meet the minimum cutoff to get into college. Luke, for his part, managed to hold on to his previous grades. Ethan ranked top 3 in the entire city, and with his help, my own score had risen quite a bit too. Happily, I chose a university. On the day we reported in, I saw both Luke and Ethan on campus. Without hesitation, I walked over and stood next to Ethan. Time flew by. Before I knew it, we were already in our sophomore year. Ethan's business had ridden the wave of the esports boom, and he made good money. This time around, he had a bright future. He'd never be bullied to death again. And I was finally living a peaceful, carefree life. After holding it in for more than a year, I finally asked him the question that had been weighing on my mind. "Ethan, what does 130924 mean?" He had matured a lot over the past year. He looked puzzled. "What? That number? 130,924? What does it mean?" Ethan's eyes widened, his face slowly flushed red. "Emily, who told you that?" I waved my hand. "You first answer me and I'll tell you." No matter how I pressed him, he refused to say a word. We hovered in this strange space, more than friends, but not quite lovers. Eventually, even my roommate couldn't stand it anymore. "Emily, when are you and Ethan going to break this tension already? I've seen less drama in soap operas." A few days later, our student group was planning a 2-day, 1-night camping trip, and we could bring guests. My roommate urged me with sparkling eyes. "Why don't you bring Ethan? It's the perfect chance." I laughed. Okay, since everyone's rooting for it, I'll invite him. On the day of the camping trip, over 20 classmates came, with many bringing boyfriends or girlfriends. Altogether, there were more than 40 of us. We rented 2 minibuses to head up the mountain. We had reserved a few wooden cabins in the woods, and over a dozen stargazing tents. Ethan stuck close to me the whole time, helping with luggage and even picking a cabin for us. But what surprised me was that Luke, invited by one of the guys in our class, had also joined the trip. When I saw Luke for the first time at the campsite, I felt a small pang in my chest, but only for a second. Then I looked right past him, treating him like thin air. But then, while picking up supplies at the camp's distribution point, I caught a glimpse of another familiar face. "What's wrong?" Ethan asked me. "I think I just saw Olivia." I blinked, and the figure was gone. Olivia didn't get into college, she'd entered the workforce long ago. It must have been my imagination. That night, while I was alone in one of the wooden cabins in the forest, I noticed a strange smell. Before I could react, everything went black. Later, I was jolted awake by intense heat. Flames were everywhere. For a moment, I couldn't tell if I was dreaming or if this was really happening. The thick smoke burned my lungs and throat, and my head ached. I started hallucinating, flashes of memories mixed with what was real. I saw myself back in the past, back when I was still with Luke. He accompanied me and Olivia to this very same school trip. During that camp, Olivia and I had shared a cabin. That night, there had been a fire. I grabbed my head and groaned in pain. In my vision, I saw Ethan rushing into the flames to save me. Emily. I couldn't move. Something had been used on me, and my body wouldn't respond. 2 lives, the same fire. The boundary between memory and reality was blurring. In the hallucination, Ethan was the one who saved me. The fire had broken out in this same remote camping area. When people noticed the flames, not only was my cabin ablaze, but the surrounding woods were catching fire too. Ethan had been here in the last life as well. He saved me, got me out, but he never made it out himself. He'd passed me into Luke's arms, asked Luke to carry me out, and then collapsed in the fire. Later, everyone said Ethan had been bullied to death. Even I had believed that, but it wasn't true. In my last life, Ethan died because he ran into a burning building to save me. I stared at the flames licking across the scene. More memories flooding back. The year Ethan died, I had lost my memory because of the fire. That wildfire had caused 1 death and 2 injuries. Ethan was the one who died. Luke and I were the injured because it was Luke who carried me out of the flames. Everyone assumed he was the one who saved me. That incident changed everything. Afterward, my dad completely changed his opinion of Luke. He started to approve of our relationship. Later, he even handed the company over to Luke. Dad never questioned what really happened. I, because of the trauma and memory loss, was protected. My dad was so heartbroken he told everyone not to bring up the fire. Told them to pretend it never happened. Said all I needed to do was get better. As for Luke, who had taken credit for something he hadn't done, he reaped all the rewards. He'd only carried me out but gained everything. And because of that, he feared more than anyone that I might remember the truth. So of course he never said a word. Everyone thought they were protecting me, and in the end, I really did forget that fire. That fire buried Ethan without a name, without recognition, without anyone remembering what he'd done. When the flames reached my feet, the truth finally came rushing back. Just then, the locked door burst open. Ethan charged inside. "Emily, why are you here?" I cried. "I'm taking you out," he said, rushing to help me up. But the moment he touched me, he realized my body had gone limp. I couldn't move at all, so he scooped me up into his arms. A burning beam fell and struck the back of his leg. He winced, sweat beading on his forehead from the pain. I curled up in his arms, tears stinging my eyes as I stared at him, so foolish in both lives. He was so foolish. If anyone was saving anyone in this lifetime, it was Ethan saving me. Because I'd mentioned seeing Olivia earlier, he had been extra cautious, on alert. That's why he came earlier this time. The fire hadn't fully spread yet. This time, he made it just in time to get me out. This time, things were truly different. As Ethan carried me out of the smoke and flames, as my mind slowly cleared, I could finally hear the panicked screams of my classmates all around me. It's on fire. Call 911. The mountain's burning. In the chaos, I spotted Luke, his face pale, running against the crowd straight toward the flames. He was shouting my name at the top of his lungs. At first he called me Emily, then Em, and finally a word I hadn't heard in forever, babe. Luke looked wrecked, hollow-eyed, staring into the inferno like he'd seen death itself. He tried to charge in, but people around him stopped him, telling him to calm down. Just as he was about to force his way through, I called his name, but I'd inhaled too much smoke. My throat was completely shot. He didn't hear me, so Ethan turned his head and yelled for me. Luke. Luke finally looked our way, and the first thing he saw was me curled up in Ethan's arms. The way Ethan held me, protected me, it was undeniable. That one glance said everything. Luke clenched his fists, his chest rising and falling with emotion, but it was too late. Deep down he knew it. Even if fate had given him another chance, what would he have done with it? The moment he chose Olivia over me in the last life, the distance between us had already begun. Life is long, but the wounds inflicted by those closest to us cut the deepest. Even if they heal, they leave scars that never fade. If you want to hold on to love, the best way is to be consistent. Never hurt the person you love. Never test human nature, because human nature can't stand being tested. Any girl who has truly woken up from heartbreak would never go back. Luke opened his mouth, but nothing came out. It was as if his voice got stuck in his throat. Then suddenly he laughed, and the more he laughed, the louder it got. It was as if he were laughing at himself. His friends looked on worried. Luke finally said, "As long as she's okay." And with that he turned and walked away. Thanks to how early the fire was discovered, no one died, but Ethan had broken his leg while saving me. My dad came to the hospital personally to see him. That day, I told Dad about a few suspicious things that happened during the fire. He frowned and said, "Emily, I promise I'll get to the bottom of this." In the previous life, Olivia had also attended a university and was close to me. I never suspected her. That gave her the perfect opportunity to do things behind my back. But this time, she had appeared at the scene without any explanation, and we weren't on good terms. Her motive was obvious. That made the investigation much clearer. This time, no one thought the fire had been my fault. It clearly wasn't caused by negligence. The results came back quickly. Sure enough, signs of arson were found at the scene. Olivia was just one step away from being sent to prison. Dad told me to wait for good news. He was determined to uncover the truth and hold whoever hurt his daughter accountable. But then Luke turned himself in. He was prosecuted and sentenced. Before serving his time, he requested to see me one last time. I went. "Emily," he said, "I didn't start the fire." He looked me in the eyes. "I know what you're thinking. I've thought about all of it too. The fire in our past life and this one. Looking back now, it all made sense. That fire in the last life had happened because my dad had disapproved of Luke. He didn't believe he could take care of me. So Olivia and Luke had orchestrated everything to change that. She drugged me, started the fire, then planned for Luke to show up and rescue me. But they didn't expect Ethan to arrive first. Luke only managed to carry me out in the end. And in this life, Olivia still hated me, so she took the risk and tried to get revenge. Only this time Luke hadn't known about it. That's why he came too late. You could say he never expected that even without his involvement, the fire still happened in this lifetime. When Luke realized I had finally found the one who truly saved me, he also realized that in this life he wouldn't even get a second chance. He looked at me and said, "I went to prison for you, but you didn't start the fire. You chose to take the blame. What does that have to do with me?" His face twitched, lips pale with tension. "Emily, you came back too, didn't you?" I fainted. Confusion. Luke gave a bitter laugh. "Does it matter whether you did or not? Either way, I've lost you in this life." He lowered his head and said, "Emily, I never told you this to your face, but I loved you. I was stupid. When I had you, I didn't cherish you, and by the time I realized, it was already too late. You loved me with everything you had, from innocence to maturity. You gave me half your lifetime's worth of affection, and I let you down. I didn't deserve it. These past 2 years I've kept thinking, If I hadn't made all those mistakes, would we have ended up differently? Could we have been happy? He smiled weakly. I had a beautiful wife, a wealthy life, everything a man could dream of, but I didn't understand it. I let pride matter more than love. Do you know, Emily, what I hated most in this world? It was people calling me a Phoenix man, saying I used your father's money to rise above my station. But what about my efforts, my sacrifices? Did anyone ever see those? You gave me too much. So much that your light overshadowed mine. That's why I wanted to have the money in my own hands. I wanted everything to be mine. Only when I had Olivia by my side did I feel like a real man. Luke lowered his head, his eyes red at the corners. But going through everything again, I finally realized how terribly wrong I was. In those 8 years, I'd already fallen in love with you. I hated seeing you cry. I hated seeing you hurt or upset. Just a frown from you made my heart ache, but I understood all of that too late. Going to prison now, that's just my karma. I deserve it. It's what I owe you. He said that in the last life he'd made too many mistakes and didn't know how to make up for them. So let this be it, he said. Let this be the end. When I left the detention center, I returned just in time for a family dinner my dad had organized. No matter what, the storm had passed. Though he called it a family dinner, only 3 people sat at the table. My dad, Ethan, and me. Ethan sat at the side, smiling at me. He didn't say a word, just looked at me with quiet warmth. Feeling embarrassed under his gaze, I lowered my head and pretended to sip water. Well, would you look at that? Dad laughed, looking between Ethan and me. You two are like a pair of snakes, all wrapped up and twisting around each other after a good meal. What kind of father says that about his daughter? I gawked at him. Dad pulled me to my feet. Go take a walk. Our garden was huge. Dad had hired people to take care of all the plants. Ethan had lived here on and off for over half a year now, so he and I both knew every corner of it well. Was there really a need to go take a walk? Ethan laughed and said, let's go. So, under Dad's not-so-subtle encouragement, we found ourselves standing beneath the blue cherry tree in the yard talking. Ethan looked down at me and said, the night of the fire, I had a dream. In the dream, I saved you, and then I died. Right before I closed my eyes in the fire, I made a wish in my heart. I wished that my moon would be happy for the rest of her life, and if she couldn't be happy, I wanted to give her happiness myself. He smiled faintly, and then I opened my eyes and saw the first rays of morning sunlight breaking through my fingers. It felt like I'd been granted a whole lifetime more. He looked at me. Emily, you've always wanted to know what 1-3-9-24 means, haven't you? He leaned closer. Come here, let me tell you. Ethan whispered. I leaned in, standing on tiptoe. Ethan gently studied me and said softly, Emily, 13 is the number of strokes in your last name, 09 is the number of strokes in your first name, and 24 means I love you. That was the bank password he'd used for 2 lifetimes, and the love he never once said aloud, but carried with him every moment. Ethan's epilogue. I dreamt of my entire life. I was an illegitimate child. My mother met my father when she was just 19. At first, she didn't know he was married. She believed she had found true love, but later she discovered the truth. The man she had fallen for had deceived her. She became the villain, the woman everyone condemned. If she had walked away, maybe she wouldn't have been judged so harshly, but she chose to forgive my father and stay. Did she know that by staying, she became the willing homewrecker? The one who ruined a marriage? My father's wife hated me. Just the fact that I existed was a constant reminder of her husband's betrayal. Even I hated how I came into the world. I felt dirty, unworthy. So when kids at school bullied me, I didn't resist. I didn't fight back. I didn't care enough to try. The only person in that house who was ever good to me was my older brother. He always said, "This is not our fault. It's the adults' mess, not ours." He'd sneak me pocket money when I was punished and banned from meals. He'd slip me food. But one day he died because of me. He took me out to cheer me up. We got into a car accident. A speeding truck was barreling toward us. He pushed me out of the way, but he got dragged under the wheels. Just a minute earlier, he had been laughing with me. Then, in front of my eyes, his body was crushed in half. So sometimes I felt like maybe it would have been better if those bullies had beaten me to death. I was disgusting. I didn't deserve to live. Until that day, the girl I'd always dreamed of came and saved me. I asked her, "Aren't you afraid I'll cling to you if you help me?" I can't remember what she said anymore. All I know is my moon was glowing. She didn't even realize it, but in the darkness of my life, she lit up everything. Someone once asked me, "What can you give her?" I wanted to give her my life, my whole life. That's why I started a business, why I worked so hard, why I stayed by her side, always before and after, in this life and the next. Emily Carter is the one I carry in my heart. Luke's epilogue. After I got out of prison, I saw the wedding video of Ethan and Emily from back when they got married. In a sea of flowers, Ethan looked at her as if she were the most precious thing in the world. His eyes held no distraction, only awe. But I had once stood in a field like that too. I had once kissed her like that. I had once held her in my arms as she slept, and now I couldn't stop myself. I went to their home after the wedding. I stood at the corner, watching Ethan, now fully transformed into a polished and successful man. Someone from another world, nothing like me anymore. They had a daughter, now a sweet, beautiful little girl. As the three of them stepped out of the car, Ethan reached for Emily's hand first. Then he picked up their daughter and lifted her onto his shoulders. They looked like a perfect family in that moment. I accidentally made a sound. Emily looked up. She saw me. She froze for a second, just 1 second. Then she looked away. She didn't need to forgive me. She didn't need to say a word. She had erased me completely, as if I were air. I wandered away hollow. As I passed by a convenience store, I went in and bought a pack of cigarettes. I took a couple of drags, then I made a decision. I would go find Olivia. But when I arrived at her apartment building, I saw Olivia arm in arm with a man who looked at least 50. I felt a wave of nausea. Olivia was plastered against the beer belly of that old man. He ran his hand along her waist, sleazy and suggestive. When Olivia saw me after I'd been released from jail, her expression turned uncomfortable. After the old man left, she said coldly, "Luke, I don't have any money for you. Don't come looking for me again." She didn't even bother pretending in front of anyone anymore. I gave a cold, sarcastic laugh. She snapped, "What are you laughing at? You think you're better than me? I don't need you or Emily Carter anymore," she sneered. "I'm living just fine on my own with other men." In that moment, I suddenly remembered the 18-year-old version of myself. Back then, I worked my fingers to the bone just to buy Emily a gift. Life was hard, but I never stooped to begging, never even thought of asking Emily for a dime. And now look at Olivia, shameless and without a shred of dignity. She destroyed someone else's family just to get money. The Olivia standing before me was no longer the delicate girl people once knew. Her face now was hardened, jaded, and ugly. I found her repulsive. I regretted everything. I wanted to rip time apart forever, having ruined my life over someone like her.